All right, good morning. I am ABC 10 meteorologist Rob Carlmark with a live update on our streaming app. And if you're watching on a smart TV, you already know what to do. You've already downloaded it, maybe put it on your bottom highlighted channels there, or on the mobile app, we'll have these live updates. And we're going to start doing these most Thursdays and Fridays getting into the weekend, because that's really when we're trying to plan our weekend. Maybe we're planning a trip to the Sierra for skiing or snowboarding, or just playing in the snow. So there's a lot of things that load up closer to the weekend. So that's mostly what we're focused on. But on this live update, we really do need to pay attention to, of course, the top weather story in the whole country, which is what's going on in Los Angeles, the LA basin, and the ongoing fires, because they're still not out. So I just want to take it back a little bit here, because there are a lot of things that had to line up in order to get the situation that we're currently dealing with. So first of all, what we saw during the summer was the middle of the Pacific. It's called the Nino 3.4 region, rapidly start to cool off. And when it goes colder than normal for a long period of time, we enter what we call a La Nina phase. And we're still moving into that territory. It has to be for a certain amount of time. But the reality is that once you're in it during our rainy season, this is a pattern that we've seen many times occur. Not every single time. There's a lot of exceptions to this. But if you had to put something down on paper, hey, what do you think it'll look like? The statistics reveal that we often, not always, see drier than normal conditions in Southern California. We often see wetter than normal conditions in the Pacific Northwest down to about far Northern California. And then locally, Central and Northern California, we're somewhere in between. We've seen it alternate back and forth. But the reality is that this is what we tend to see. So going into our winter season, a lot of people were aware that fire season could be extended, maybe going into October, November, maybe December, because we have a history with this in Southern California. But this came about very abruptly. And I just want to go back to the last big fire event that happened as we went from fall into winter. Technically, this happened in early December, the Thomas Fire, but it did until it finally went out. It did not go out until we were officially into winter. But this was, at the time, the largest fire in state history. It occurred in 2017 in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. It was another strong offshore wind event. And at the time, it was the largest fire in state history. Since then, and this was not that long ago, it has now become the 9th largest, because so many other fires have leapfrogged that. And we've seen fires that are clear up to nearly 1 million acres that have burned. With this season, though, we saw that La Nina pattern become a reality. We've had a decent dose of storms in Northern California, and reservoirs are doing good, above average for far Northern California, Sacramento somewhere in between. But clearly, when you start to get into these darker colors, not only is it well below average, just learned today that San Diego now is this water year, which starts in October and then goes all the way till September 30th of the following year, that so far it's the driest start to a water year that they've ever recorded. And that's San Diego. Obviously, LA is in roughly the same club, and it has not rained in a significant way since the end of March. That's for LA, Oceanside, San Diego, Santa Barbara. You get the idea, Oxnard's in Ventura County. So it's been a very long time, more than 280 days since we've seen meaningful rain. Now, there's been some drops in the bucket for LA, but it really hasn't amounted to all that much. Now we're showing you live updated webcams. That's not pure streaming, not all the frames, but basically one frame every minute or so. And you can see some of the aftermath. But the reason why this is important is, number one, we still have an ongoing smoke issue. Number two, there are still active fires that are burning in various portions, new fires that popped up, including one that popped up near Calabasas just last night. But look at the vegetation. There's burned areas, but it's also just dead. It's just brown, and it's completely dried out. And the problem is that usually by this point we have some level of rain where there's that natural greening up that we get here in Northern California. That also happens in Southern California. And then once those natural grasses move in and there's some moisture that's starting to move back into some of the drier chaparral vegetation, then the wind events that we can have, offshore wind events, they're just not as severe, and they're not as destructive potentially, because if they happen, if something starts, the fire behavior is much more limited because there's moisture in the fuels. Now, what we've also learned within the last 24 hours is that both of these fires are going to treat them separately. The Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire have destroyed at least 5,000 structures for each one of these. There's ongoing surveys. I expect these numbers to go up. I don't know by how much, but they're certainly going to go up. You go to the top of the list, the Camp Fire in Paradise destroyed 18,000 structures. I think we forget somehow, we forget how unbelievable that one event was that changed the entire understanding of how a fire could start in the morning and then hours later completely destroy a town. Well, we've seen that for Pacific Palisades, and we've seen that for portions of Altadena as well. Just unbelievable. Brendan Minchef put this together just a few minutes ago, and I think this is really important. Santa Ana winds, when we describe them, they're strong offshore winds specifically for Southern California. And they start to show up once we get bigger systems moving around. High pressures moving around, low pressures in the Gulf of Alaska start to take shape, sometimes bringing us rain, sometimes getting close to us, or going over the top, like that was the case with that inside slider that really spawned what we saw in Southern California. But notice how they start to ramp up during the middle of our rainy season. We usually don't pay attention to the ones that are deeper in our rainy season because, again, if they happen, it's strong offshore winds, it gets windy. If anything, it provides actually warmer and nice weather for Southern California. But in this specific case, because of the background dryness of the vegetation and the extreme level of the Santa Ana winds with gusts up to 80, 90 miles per hour for about 24 hours, those two, the combination of those two things really set up this fire event that affected the entire LA basin. So where are we now? Going forward, we're going to get some onshore winds later on today on this Friday, which is going to help bring up the humidity of the air. It's also going to just change the wind direction in general, sometimes blowing the fire activity back on what it's already burned. And that's going to be the reason why they're going to lose that red flag warning at 6 p.m. tonight. But I want to show you later on this weekend, starting Saturday night, notice the wind barbs as they start to push offshore, yet once again in some of these locations. So this is something that they have to watch in the near term, because when the wind's blowing offshore, depending on how strong they are, we could find ourselves in an elevated fire situation, if not red flag warnings yet once again, tail end of the weekend going into next week. Now here's our local weather. We've got a cold morning that's happened so far, lots of 30s out there, sunny skies, and this dry pattern that we're currently in is not only going to go out 10 days, it could go out even a little bit longer. The new thing that is popping up is a wind advisory for the Bay Area hills. So this is a little bit elevated in the beginning. This goes all the way until Sunday morning. So yes, some level of impressive winds are coming back for the Bay Area, and I would not count out the valley as well. Now, through the course of today on your Friday, not a big deal, just a little bit breezy up high. Now we find ourselves in the middle of the day on Saturday, and yeah, it's going to be windy. It really depends on how strong the winds are for how long, the duration, if it's going to be an advisory or not. We'll let the National Weather Service figure that out. All I can tell you is that plan on winds that will be very annoying, if not worse, all day long on Saturday out of the north, gusts up to 25, even 30, 35 miles per hour. Most of that's going to be on the west side of the valley, Delta, and the Bay Area. But we're going to get a lot of wind right down the middle of the valley as well. Then for Sunday, we'll have breezy conditions, but not that bad. The temperatures, we've not really paid a lot of attention to the temperatures, but just yesterday, this may surprise you, when we hit 70 degrees for the executive airport in Sacramento, that actually tied a record, and we were only 1 degree away, 69 degrees in downtown Sacramento for that reporting location. So the temperatures have not only been very mild, if not a touch warm, but actually at record levels just yesterday for our local area. Now they're starting to come down, more mild, still nice, and over the next 6 to 10 days, we are going to start to cool down. I think you'll really notice it by Sunday when we move into the 50s, that as we extend going out into the next week and next weekend, still remaining very likely that we're going to be dry. So for our local forecast, before I get to the Sierra forecast, this is how it's looking down low in the valley. 60s today. We've got some 60s, then 50s by Sunday, and dry as can be all the way for the next 10 days. And if you want to go out 14 days, it's not official here, but just giving an early look, just if you're curious, it's also still looking dry at this point. Okay, let's switch over to the Sierra. This is a Friday, and a lot of people are planning on heading up to the mountains, whether you're going to play in the snow, go sledding, go to a ski area, go snowboarding, or just enjoy the high Sierra during a dry period of weather. We've got well above average snowpack for the northern Sierra, so this is good for water supply. Locally, we're about average or so. It's close enough, obviously, because of what we've seen, almost everything hitting north. The southern Sierra is a little bit less than average, 75%, but we're still hanging in there. The northern Sierra is really saving us for the statewide statistics. We're still technically above average, but of course, We would love more storms. We have to have them. They're just not in the cards for northern, central, or southern California. Very quickly for the roads, looking ahead, getting to the snow is always an issue. Traffic-wise, it's going to be busy because it's a Friday, but we are not expecting any chain controls because we don't have any storms. So that's going to be on 49, on 80, on 50, on 88, on 4, and 108. All those locations, I don't expect chain control, but when we have this warming and then refreezing into the teens overnight, we have this thaw-freeze cycle. You do tend to get black ice in shady corners, so watch for that if you're driving up very early in the morning. If it looks slick and shiny, it's ice, and you really got to take it easy. The expected lifts to be open over the weekend, it's hard to gauge because we are going to have some level of wind tomorrow, so some of the lifts that are up high might be on wind holds, so this might be reduced. But you could see a fair number of them have most of the mountain open, and they're looking pretty good. It will all depend on their operational schedule and what's going on. But as far as what we can expect, some pretty decent conditions, sunny skies, warmer conditions. Just watch out for some icy conditions in the morning, but then it'll start to thaw up a little bit into the afternoon, and then we're going to see that cycle repeat itself all the way through the weekend. For your 7-day forecast for Tahoe, about 50 degrees, so a warm Friday. Then through the weekend, we'd like the temperatures to remain close to freezing so there isn't too much thawing and getting too slushy. This is very early for that to happen, but right around the teens when you start, 30s through most of the day, then getting cold again overnight. Grooming will save you during these thaw-freeze cycles because at least that softens up the snow a little bit. So watch for these conditions in Tahoe over the next 7 days. Our streaming updates are live occasionally. We're focused on Thursday and Fridays, but remember, if anything big happens, we'll bring it right here on ABC 10 Plus.